So we're waiting. I'm sorry. You've been through so much.
Actually,
Woo.
I honestly did
Sorry.
not bear the brunt of this. Like I got
Sorry.
honestly some, I don't even know exactly what happened. I can't wait to hear all the stories. Can I just start by saying, thankful to all of you? And again, I'm so saddened by the police violence that I heard about and I saw on the news. And in some cases, I heard about directly. My COVID friends who were in jail with me. We did not predict that sort of escalation of violence. No democracy should have that sort of escalation of violence. It's not just an issue of animal rights now. This is a basic issue of human rights and democracy. And we'll fight as far as we can to ensure those rights are vindicated because part of the way we'll vindicate the rights for the animals is to vindicate the rights of the rescuers as well. And now the defense of the right to rescue will begin because we've been formally charged. So I hope you all keep following the story, keep staying plugged into the story, stay involved in the story in whatever capacity you can. I know there'll probably be a smaller subset of us actually in court fighting, but the fight is still all of ours. And most importantly, those dogs are still trapped in cages. And as long as they're trapped in cages, the fight has to continue and it will. And we will get every single dog out. So again, thank you all so much. I'm so grateful for all of you. Keep the dogs in your heart and just envision the world where every single one of these movements is with a happy family, playing in the yard, seeing the sunlight for the first time. So keep envisioning that it will happen for all the beagles who are trapped in labs across the country and the globe. So let's make it happen. Hi. I'll you know a little bit. So, okay. So, okay. Yeah, and I guess one other thing I would say is that's why we're doing a press conference because I've seen a lot of the news from jail, and two things that just clearly have not been documented and have not been discussed enough in the media are just the specific gruesome incidents of cruelty that have been revealed inside Ridglan Farms for many years. And it's deeply ironic that the sheriff keeps talking about Ridglan Farms. He's had so many press statements about Ridglan Farms. The one detail he has somehow conveniently ignored every single one of his statements is exactly what's happened because the specifics matter. And we're not talking about, I had an FBI investigator on the Joint Terrorism Task Force asking about, among other things, do you say bugs too? Which is a bizarre question for an anti-terrorism officer to ask me. But it was very clear to me these officers want as much as possible to avoid the specifics. Because he says cruelty is in the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What's next? Are you going to say letting my dog out in the backyard is cruel? That is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is surgically mutilating dogs without anesthesia, injecting dogs with rabies, watching them descend into madness over weeks and months, and then die, and vivisecting their brains, confining animals in 2 foot by 4 foot cages for their entire lives, 7 to 8 years, so they're driven to psychosis. This is gruesome abuse, the likes of which you will not hear about unless you are watching a horror movie or you're looking inside Ridglan Farms. And it is time for the authorities to start talking about those specifics. So I want us all to know these details and ensure The people in power know these details too, and are confronted with these details. And I think we have to escalate beyond Dane County at this point, because if the Dane County authorities are so willing to stop us from talking about rescuing the dogs, acting to rescue the dogs, prevent them from things like being injected with rabies, then it's time for us to escalate to people who might have a conscience. And I hope Josh Ball and Tony Evers have a conscience. If they don't, they have to be held accountable too. Because in a democracy, it is not ruled by the powerful, it is not ruled by the politicians, it is ruled by the people. And the people very clearly want these dogs to be free. Let's not get critical. Let's make sure these people in power are confronted with these specific facts, because the facts matter. The facts matter, and if we don't get a chance to argue with them in the court of public opinion, I guarantee we're going to argue these facts in a court of law, and we will win in front of a jury. Thanks for getting more people for that. So let's take a second and shape it up. So yeah, we'll just reposition a little bit, and you guys want to do one-on-one? We'll have a goal in a bit. I'm fine with the gating. Okay. All right. By the way, I encourage everybody. Signs behind it. Sign behind it. They love saying, "Oh, it was already addressed by the special prosecutor. We looked into it. We didn't find anything." Let's talk about the specifics found by the judge, found by the VEB, the Veterinary Examining Board, found by the Department of Agriculture. Hardly an allied to animals. All of these state agencies found these gruesome abuses of dogs, horrific torture of dogs. Patricia McConnell, the most prominent animal behaviorist, arguably in the country, described the conditions at Ridglan Farms as torturous for dogs. Torturous for dogs. So how do they justify allowing animal torture, animal cruelty, be inflicted on thousands of animals, and go after the people trying to help them instead of trying to protect the dogs? That's not acceptable, and that's not consistent with the rule of law. And again, we have enormous legal firepower behind us. So we're happy to fight this case, and I'm happy to defend this case before a jury, because the jury will see that we're right.
So when you say escalating to the governor and the attorney general, what does that look like?
I think that first we have to reach out to them, and I know folks around me have already done that this weekend. But at the end of the day, the history of social change and social justice shows that if powerful people are not willing to respond, nonviolent action is important. So whether that's protests, whether that's rallies, whether that's sit-ins at the offices to ensure that they see that the people of this country want the dogs to be protected. The reality is, I've got friends who are friends of Josh Ball, who seems like a good guy. You might not know much about this case. His office so far has been completely reluctant to even touch this case, and I'm not sure why, because it is a case that, frankly, would be a winner for him. Who doesn't love politicians who help dogs? Right? It should be an easy answer. And my explanation for why there has not been action is money. And we all know this is how it works. We've seen this in the FD case. We saw this in the crisis. How this is litigated at the time. There wasn't a single bank prosecuted for all the damage and loss of life, destruction caused by the financial crisis. Why is it that time and time again the powerful in the world they get away with crimes, and the most vulnerable, including dogs, even when they are being literally vivisected, when they're being injected with rabies and their brains are torn out of their bodies? They're literally being vivisected, and they get no rights. They get no protection of the law. That is not right. If we do not defend the vulnerable, then our society is not worth defending. But our society is worth defending, because we do defend the vulnerable. And by we, I mean the people. The politicians might not, the corporations might not, but the people do. And that is why people across the country, from the right and the left, have said, protect these dogs. And it's time for the politicians to listen.
So who do you think is corrupting the attorney general and the governor? Who's paying them off?
Yeah, so there's $14 billion about every year just in NIH grants that go to the animal experimentation industry. There are billions of dollars in revenue that come in Dane County from the biomedical industry. Not all this is animal experimentation. And as someone whose family was involved in biomedical research, my dad was a researcher at Eli Lilly. I believe medical science. I think medical science is crucial to saving lives. What is not okay is, without consent, in direct violation of law, torturing sentient beings, including dogs, if there's a profit. And that is what's happened. Merck, for example, this rabies experiment, this is not done to save human or animal lives. We have a very effective rabies vaccine already. This is done so Merck can trick people into buying a patented vaccine that will make them an enormous amount of money. In the meantime, if dozens of dogs descend into madness and die and have their brains vivisected, that's just part of their business. That's not okay, because it's illegal in the state of Wisconsin. And it's time for the politicians to hold corporations accountable for crimes against animals and human beings. That's
See Mark Colpan raise this question.
Yeah.
kind of talk to me a little bit about the reaction that you guys have got.
Mark has been such an incredible ally to this movement because he sees both that the law has been broken by Ridglan Farms and that the public wants these dogs to be protected. And that's what every good public servant should do. I'm confused why Calvin Barrett and Ismail Hassan so far have been unwilling to listen to the public and enforce the law. I think it's career suicide for them. But again, money talks. And a lot of this money unfolds in ways that are extremely hard to trace. As someone who's been following campaign finance for the last 20 years of my life, I wrote an op-ed when I was a journalist at the University of Chicago 20 years ago about how campaign finance is corrupting our entire political system. And it has become even more difficult to track how money changes hands. I'm not making a direct allegation because a lot of this stuff is more soft power. It's not necessarily a direct bribe. It's about super PACs and dark money and all these things. But the biomedical industry is immensely powerful in Dane County. It is the single largest private industry in the county. It's billions of dollars in revenue. They have a lot of influence. They're on all sorts of campaign committees. They're on white ribbon panels. They're in all sorts of kind of fundraising calls with people. And so they're the friends of the people in power. And the people in power don't like going after their friends. We saw that in the Epstein case.
When you got out of the van, we believe that you were delivering the lawsuit. You had an envelope in your hand. What was the intention going on Saturday? Was that the intention? And you kind of talked to me a little bit about, I know maybe you were anticipating trying to negotiate, but that didn't happen. Just walk us through kind of what happened with those.
Yeah, what happened was an immediate escalation of violence without any dialogue and conversation at all. The deep irony is democracy is based on dialogue, but Sheriff Barrett himself has said, I believe in dialogue. That is fundamentally what nonviolent direct action is about. Nonviolent direct action is necessary. It's been necessary for 200 years in this country, going back to the founding fathers. When dialogue is collapsed because people in power are not willing to talk. And Calvin Barrett talks again. He loves to say, oh yeah, Dane County, we're all about dialogue. You know how many emails he didn't respond to after we had our initial conversation and realized he was wrong? I had one conversation only because thousands of people decided they would come to Dane County to help with dogs. For years, they had ignored us entirely when we reported animal cruelty to Ridglan Farms. But a couple thousand people said, we're coming to Ridglan Farms. We're going to help these dogs ourselves. Then he finally called me. And then for about an hour, he repeated to me over and over again that Ridglan is simply above the law. I'm sorry, there's an animal cruelty exception. Corporations can get away with animal cruelty. In his view, Ridglan could literally drag every one of these dogs out to the backyard of Ridglan Farms and beat them to death with a baseball bat. It would be totally fine, totally legal. That's not correct. There's no judge, there's no law professor, there's no lawyer who believes this. But this is a theory they've been operating under for 20 years. 20 years. And part of the reason for that is they're not willing to have any dialogue. And we saw that manifest in the first couple minutes of the demonstration that happened on April 18th. Because before I even got a chance to even talk to the officers about why I was there, about the lawsuit that we have planned for Ridglan Farms threatening to sue people, falsely imprisoning a beauty queen, surrounding your car with a bunch of cars. You're not allowed to do that. You can't just trap someone after you've threatened to shoot them. For doing all these things, instead of investigating them, they immediately arrested me while I was carrying the lawsuit to Ridglan Farms. And you have to ask yourself why that's the case. And my answer is there's stuff happening behind the scenes that none of us really understand. That probably involves something like this. I've been angry, and I'm not at my best when I'm angry, so I want to apologize for the anger. I think people can understand when you're thinking about dogs having their brains vivisected, their vocal cords torn out, without painkillers, why people would be angry. I think it's extremely important, and I've emphasized this from day one of this campaign, that all of us harness this anger towards nonviolent action, right? Within the confines of democracy and the rule of law. So I've said that from day one. And so I guess the last thing I'm going to say is, at the end of the day, I believe that Ismail Hassan, Calvin Barrett, Josh Call, Tony Evers, all these people don't want dogs to be tortured. A lot of these people probably have dogs in their homes. So if we're actually able to have that dialogue, if these folks will actually sit down with all of the beautiful people out here just trying to help these dogs be freed from horrific animal abuse, then we will get to a solution that's right for everyone, including the Ridglan Farms, including the politicians. But they have to be willing to talk. And we've seen in this country what happens when elites are not willing to respond to popular demands.
Can you just tell us what your bail conditions are? I've heard
Yeah.
other people talk about they couldn't be in Dane County.
Yeah, I've been deported from Dane County.
That's going to be pretty hard for you to continue this.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, but it's a grassroots movement. Their fallacy was that if we take Wayne out, the action will descend. We saw on April 18th that didn't work out so well for them. Right? If anything, things got worse for them and escalated in ways that frankly, are going to end up with class action litigation against the counties. 100%. So I think the movement will continue regardless of what they do to me. I do find it deeply ironic that they have, for years and years, said, "Oh, we can't do anything about this animal cruelty." But the moment there's any sort of animal activism that they think even arguably violates the law, and there are arguments either way. I think our legal authorities will prevail in a court of law, but I can see their positions. But the fact that they have set bail at $20,000, which when I came out and talked to some of the officers and told them what the amount was, even the officers were shaking. One was just little as a damn. Like they couldn't believe it. There's just something. I think on the same day there were like a child molester, domestic violence. All of them got like signature bonds, $0 and maybe $500. And the guy's rescuing puppies to get $20,000. What's going on here, right? But the other conditions include things like being banned from Dane County. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think Ridglan Farms is in Dane County. Maybe there are other powerful people they're trying to protect. Who knows? But as far as I know, there aren't any beagles trapped in Dane County, right? I can't go to Blue Mountains, can't have any contact with Ridglan Farms. Other than litigation, I am allowed to continue lawsuits. That's my right, my duty as a lawyer. But I don't think it's going to stop the campaign, or if anything, it's going to fuel the campaign because people will see the overwrought effort. I mean, this is just the way authoritarian governments respond. This is not the way people respond in democracy, and certainly not in a place like Dane County. Their side are the ones wearing masks. Their side are the ones with guns and tear gas. We had flowers and stuffed animals. I just wrote a blog about a grandmother of 5 who was brutally assaulted by the police. This is someone who's disabled, has scoliosis and a deteriorating back, and she's considered the most dangerous threat to Dane County to the point that the authorities have to beat her, smash her face in, kick her in the back, tear gas her so she's crying in the back of these fans saying over and over again, "I just wanted to help one dog." A disabled grandmother. So that's their priority in terms of law enforcement. There's something deeply wrong and corrupt about this. That's got to change.
Wait, what do you think that the police response yesterday, which hasn't happened to the movement before, will mean for how you organize in the future?
I think there has to be strategic adaptation. And let me just say again, I apologize to everyone. I think Ridglan's statement that I or any activist is responsible for the violence is preposterous. It's just the most absurd thing. When someone commits an act of violence, they are responsible, fundamentally. You can't blame other people for it when you're the one who did it, right? And again, this has never been done. We've done actions like this in southern Utah, right? We brought hundreds of people to Circle 4 Farms, the largest factory farm in the country. And back in 2018, the police didn't respond this way. So Dane County, where supposedly we believe in civil rights, we believe in police discretion. We don't like ICE agents shooting people on the streets. In this county, this is where they bring out tear gas, rubber bullets, kick people in the face, kick grandmothers who are disabled with back while they're screaming in agony and pepper spray them in the eyes while they're on the ground. This is happening in Dane County. So I think we do have to revisit our strategies. And honestly, one of the things we didn't predict was just that the authoritarian response by the government. And in many ways, there were signs. I mean, Kelvin Barrett in our first conversation, it's interesting. He said over and over again, "Oh, you guys are so civil and cooperative." And the moment he started saying that people were not going to accept the fact that he had falsely stated that Ridglan was exempt from the animal cruelty laws, which again, talk to any lawyer, no one believes this. No one believes this. I think he felt a little threatened. He felt his authority and power, maybe his manhood. There's this kind of almost exaggerated masculinity I see in his actions. Maybe this is a little too personal, but it's just what I see. That makes I've just seen. I've dealt with so many bullies in my life, and the thing that a bully hates more than else is having their masculinity threatened. And I think some of these guys are they're like teenagers who have had their masculinity and power threatened, and they lash out with violence. Right? I mean, it's like a lot of domestic violence on them. So I think we have to respond to that and think hard about how we can prepare for that. And one way is just scenario planning, just to make sure we set out all the possible scenarios and train our actives to prepare for all. So.
Next, senior just preparing for the lawsuit then?
Yeah, so preparing for the lawsuit and the defense, so both of them have to move forward. And I think both of them are tremendous opportunities. But I've said this for the last 10 years. I think in many ways, the defense is more important than the prosecution. The defense is more important than the class action. When we are defendants, we're in an ideal situation. And the reason is because it's clear we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're not trying to take anyone's rights away. We're just trying to defend our own freedom. And when the government is trying to put people in prison for helping puppies, that is a very sympathetic posture for us to be in. So let them come after us, and let's see where the jury lands. really quick, just for the reason of the no contact order, we're gonna have to move like 40 feet this way so that we can. Okay. Oh right, yeah, we're gonna go ahead. Yeah, that's right. Let's move to the courthouse steps.
And maybe some people can hang out with you.
Yeah, we'll Misha's coming up very soon. Maybe.
We need some people to stay here,
Yeah.
so they could greet Isha when they come out and film, and then a small number go with to the courthouse steps around the corner.
Can I help any of you guys there?
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing. I can't tell. I think
Okay, we're gonna walk with Wayne. We're so lucky that Wayne speaks so damn well. So we decided to stay an extra day.
I'm so glad you guys decided to stay.
For sure, yeah.
See all the weekend and
I'll put you on the courthouse. Yeah. Exactly. Courthouse. Yeah.
Yes.
See somebody.
Do you want to contact Rose?
Who?
Rose Patterson, his wife.
Oh.
Yeah, go on to Instagram. Find
eyes.
much better, thank you. Yeah, I was really struggling. Yeah, go on to Instagram. Yeah, I just
recently.
yeah, and just tell her he's out. Yeah, Rose Patterson of Animal Rising is Wayne's wife now. It's like incredible power couple. She's been rescuing beagles from, I think MBR Acres was the location. So I think Wayne's gonna go up on the steps now.
Maria.
Could you hold this for a second? Could you hold this for a second and film? Could you hold this for a second and film? I wanna.
I got it. Thank you so much.
Rosie.
Oh, she got, yeah.
I got a bunch.
I just missed it.
Oh, fine. I miss you so much. Just send them private. You go.
So Wayne's just currently in touch with his wife, Rose. This is amazing.
I was thinking about all of it.
Could you start filming soon? Just getting yeah, and I
But sometimes happen.
people will hear this online, but I just I'm desperate for like a selfie with Wayne. We've not been able to. I know, yeah.
I should probably do something else. I'm gonna call you up. I'm gonna be. I can't hear. We turn it up. Turn on speakers. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when people are willing to brave tear gas and rubber bullets and assaults by men in riot gear, that certainly is going to be a sign to the world that we are serious. And I think that's what happened in Birmingham and Selma and the civil rights movement. It happened at the Salt March in India in the early 19th century, or the early 20th century, that triggered kind of this mass ascendancy in the fight against British imperialism, and maybe this is a moment for animal rights. We can't say for sure any particular moment is going to be the inflection point. What we can say is moments like these are what build to that point, right? And it's one of the reasons why I just so honored. It's not really about me. It's not about strength, willingness to sacrifice of 1,000 plus people demonstrated on April 18th. So, and I think this will only grow because what happens today, I guarantee you, everyone who came here, you probably even feel this in yourselves, has become stronger, has become more courageous, more confident. And one of the amazing things about a movement is that it spread. When you tell your story back home and someone meets, you know, you or you or you or you, and you can tell your story about how you break tear gas to defend puppies from being vivisection. They'll think to themselves, maybe I can do that too, right? Because it doesn't feel real until you do that in your own life. And that happened to me too. I never thought I was the sort of person who would ever go to jail even once, much less come close to it. I didn't want to get a parking ticket. You know? I was a very rule-bound person until I met someone who had served jail, and it changed. And I think it will change us.
Thank you.
I guess, do you have any sort of general statement that you wanted to give at all after what happened today?
Sure. Yeah. Could you just remind me what outlet you're from?
Yes, I'm with Spectrum News here in Wisconsin.
Great. Yeah, I mean, what I just said outside the jail is first, I'm so grateful to everyone who stuck up for these dogs, and so saddened by the horrific police violence we saw on April 18th. I didn't witness myself, but I saw images, I heard stories about it. But second, the authorities believe the fight is over because they physically shot tear gas at people, attacked them with rubber bullets and pepper spray. That could not be further from the truth. When you use brutal repression against a nonviolent movement, it only grows stronger. And the reason is we still have the dogs in our hearts. We know these animals are being criminally abused. And the more people learn about what's actually happening, and their efforts to repress the movement are only just garnering even more attention, the stronger this movement will get, because more people will hear that dogs are being injected with rabies, that dogs are being surgically mutilated without anesthesia, having eye glands torn out of their eyes, their vocal cords ripped out of their throats. The dogs are being caged in 2 foot by 4 foot metal cages for 7+ years as they're slowly driven to insanity. These very specific details matter. And when the public is confronted with these details, the public will demand change.
I guess, what were your thoughts on the conditions of the bond that was set today? Obviously, you're not allowed to be in Dane County unless you're in court appearances. You're not allowed to have interaction with your co-defendants, despite the one legal case representing them. And I guess just in general, your thoughts on the bond that was set for you today.
My understanding is that in this very hearing, there are people who are charged with things like child molestation, child endangerment, domestic violence, who got no bail at all. And it is the guy who is rescuing puppies. He gets $20,000 and is literally kicked out of Dane County, which is a bizarre condition because typically you want people to come back. You set bail because you want to ensure people come back into the county. They did the opposite. They kicked me out. And you have to ask why, right? And the answer is not that I was committing crimes. The answer is I was endangering, and all of us together were endangering very powerful corporate interests in this county that the government does not want challenged.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. How are you, Jenny?
I'm
I haven't
good.
seen you in a while. Can you give me another hug?
I would.
For those of you who don't know, Jenny is a legendary activist who won one of the first. He won one of the first right to rescue cases in global history in Canada.
Yeah.
Got an amazing article in the Toronto Star as a result, but has been rescuing animals for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah,
My question is, some people are saying this is just all about the promotion of open rescue. And maybe, the actual rescue of the beagles was a secondary thing,
Yeah.
which I think is horrible.
Yeah.
This was all about, I think, and maybe
Yeah.
you could, confirm that, of getting the beagles out.
you don't need me to confirm this. Ask them what we said in every single Zoom call.
Thank
Every
you.
conversation we had, we ended with keep the dogs in your hearts. This is the important thing. Envision the dogs coming out. That's all we have to think about. And the reality is that is the best form of promotion you could possibly get,
Thank you.
because that is what people want to hear. They want to hear that dogs will be freed from cruelty and violence. So fundamentally, those things are not distinct. The more we engage in the direct action of freeing animals from criminal abuse, the more people will hear what we have to say. And what we showed on April 18th and March 15th before that is we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. We're not just saying the animals have to be free. We're making it happen.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Can you tell us more about what exactly happened with the FBI and what do you think their purpose was in talking to you here?
Yeah, so it was a joint terrorism task force that there were two special agents working with both the FBI and the State Department of Justice. And I think they were doing possibly one of two things. One is, and the more charitable interpretation is confirming this movement is not a violent movement. But given that they spent 2 hours a day talking to me about, among other things, how weird veganism is, this is literally part of the conversation. It's like, this is about the terrorism. You know, it's fine for you to have a view that veganism is weird. I don't know what that has to do with terrorism. Whether I also save bugs, that was like a constant refrain about whether bugs have rights and are we going to defend bugs as well. Um, Comparing us to Luigi Mangione, the United Healthcare CEO, or the killer of the United Healthcare CEO, when from day one, every single person, and one of the two agreements we reached as a group was we're nonviolent, right? The other was we're here to help bugs.
That's right. Yes.
Two agreements. And so the fundamental agreement that animated every single person's mission on April 19th, on April 18th, today, on April 21st, is it the 21st? I don't even remember what day it is that we believe in compassion even for our adversaries. And that is sometimes a struggle because it's hard. People are torturing animals, have compassion for them. We've asked people to stretch their ability to empathize with others and even have compassion for our adversaries. It's why, and honestly, I don't practice this as well. So that's about me. Certainly, Aditya, one of my co-defendants, has engaged in significant monastic studies on Buddhism. Frankly, it might be better trained in this, but I know I try, and I know everyone else tries to. And so this notion that somehow people rescuing puppies are a terroristic dangerous threat to America is so preposterous, so absurd. The only way you can explain it is to say our system is fundamentally corrupt. And it is. And I think this is one of the reasons you're seeing populist revolts all over the world, because people are realizing the system is not what it says it is. And the easiest way to see this, is when the system tells us that a disabled grandma is a bigger threat than a corporation that tortures dogs. Let me say that again. The Dane County authorities think a disabled grandma trying to rescue puppies is more dangerous than a corporation that tortures and mutilates thousands upon thousands of dogs. Priorities.
And Wayne, I'm going to be going to an event with Governor Tony Evers tomorrow morning. I'm planning to ask him about everything that's happened at Ridglan Farms last couple of days.
Yeah.
Do you have any messages or requests for the governor? I guess just any thoughts you wanted to, make sure that you hear.
Yeah. How can he defend the surgical mutilation of dogs? How can he defend injecting dogs with rabies, watching them descend into madness, and vivisecting from them for their brains? How can he defend caging a dog, a mother dog, in a 2-foot by 4-foot metal cage by herself for 7+ years to the point that she's driven to psychosis? I've heard so much media commentary, and I've heard so many government officials now respond and talk about Ridglan Farms. They never talk about the details. So let's talk about the details. Let's talk about the things the judge found in his courtroom behind me in October 2024 when we presented our evidence of animal cruelty at Ridglan Farms. Let's talk about the details that VEB, the Veterinary Examining Board, found when they banned Rick Van Dalen from continuing to practice veterinary medicine, which is extremely rare. I've talked to a lot of vets. Most of them have never even met a vet who's been banned. It just doesn't happen. But it happened to Rick Van Dalen. There's a reason why. How can they defend DADCAP, the Department of Agriculture, which again is very rarely an ally to animal advocates? Usually they're on the other side of every issue, saying there are 300+ instances of surgical mutilation without painkillers that they document. So let's talk about the specific details. And it's up to Tony Evers to answer the question to the public: is this who we are as a state? I can tell you from what I see out there, it's not who we are. It's not who we are as a country. It's not who Wisconsin is as a state. And if it's not who we are, then it's up to him to lead us down a better path.
What's next?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's next for me is getting prepared for the case. So, we're moving from action to courtroom. And that is a transition we've seen in many different movements through history. And it is just as important, or maybe not just as important, but it is very important. I still think the most important fight is the fight that happens in the court of public opinion on the streets. And frankly, the best judges agree with this. One of my former professors, Dick Posner, used to always say, the law isn't what happens in courtrooms, what's written by legislators, pieces of paper. The law is what happens in the streets, right? And so that is fundamentally where the law is determined more than the courtroom. but the quorum is a platform for us to inspire people to take action in the streets. And so that defense begins now. Yeah, thank you very much for those questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Okay. This is all very good. Lot better. Thank you. Thank you all. Say hi if you haven't. And I'm sure we'll stick around here a little bit more. And wait for all the defendants to get out. And then I know what the plan is. So what else the plan is? We're gonna go through together.
Ready for whatever.
That's Aiden. That's always the
Right.
plan.
Yeah. I know there's like some conference room we've been going to. Yeah, we still have that tonight. We can go to a park and I'll get some pizza. I know there's a couple good parks. Just Megan's in nearby. You know, is it too far away? And Ian's just eating pizza too. I think if we all go to this I don't know. They have said. I'm planning to fly out tomorrow morning. It was so good. I mean, I will say that authorities have not acted. I think we kind of got bad thoughts about this particular commissioner. Most of the judges here are pretty decent. This judge was like an old white guy who just looked very stern yesterday. But he said, he also just made his comment that is honestly pretty inappropriate for a commissioner to make. He said, I looked at your defenses, they don't seem like they apply here. It's like, that's actually not a relevant inquiry for you to be making right now, and commenting on, and it shows bias. It's not the trial judge who hasn't listened to the arguments. He hasn't read a single page.
Was it the judge or the prosecutor who referenced the non-violent agreements that we all signed? It was the prosecutor who was actually acknowledging that we've all signed and been trained in non-violence.
And some stars.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
The bail conditions are overbooked. So, it's good to this decision. I'm saying it's not long, but our suggestions we get out. Just because we want to get, we want to get all of these cases now. I think one of the mistakes we made in the past is just by either these cases too long, allowing the prosecution and honestly, just as often our defense lawyers try to come to the just like it goes get to trial, get in front of juries. Because most of the time we spend in front of, I mean, there are some decent judges, but it's just not the right district. Yeah, it's one of the things where I'll ask the questions. What can we all do? Whatever. We'll do to confess. Yeah, yeah. So anyone else who's starting, it does happen. It's hard to say how many people have started.
I can get a. I think that I
think you're the you're starting to write this plan. Supreme Court hasn't established exactly, but probably within 6 months, if we keep demanding. There's a preliminary hearing within 10 days. There's a preliminary hearing currently scheduled for April 29th. I might end up just waiving it so we can move forward to trial fast. Because the preliminary hearing in Wisconsin, most of the rules of evidence don't apply to a preliminary hearing. You can't get a lot of value out of cross-examining witnesses. It's like, what's the point of this? Because you often have just some random officer who's there for the day, reading in the other evidence, like a bunch of summary reports. Yeah, probably the main reason to do it is just to force the prosecution to clear the case faster. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very good case. But it's hard to say. We've had such disparate verdicts. I think this would be probably the strongest case we've done so far. I mean, won quite a few. And I think this would be significantly stronger than the MBR cases, two of which led to acquittal. Much stronger. So, part of it will depend on what the judges allow. If the judges gag us, don't allow us to say anything, then of course, as a Sonoma County, not the Sonoma County case was super strong, but I was just completely kind of undermine my storytelling ability by the judge saying, I couldn't even say the word battery cage. I couldn't say the word pop. Well, I mean, there's all these words that I couldn't say. And so stories that we can tell.
Terrible.
It is, but we get to appeal it on Thursday. Justin's arguing, which is why I have to go to California. Yeah, can I get
Wendy,
my wonderful team member?
It's another Canadian, Sandy Schnur.
I'm just wondering, I don't know anything about Wisconsin civil procedure and so on. The question of police brutality, will you be allowed to testify about that? Or will that be regarded as irrelevant?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, so there are at least two arguments I think we have to try and bring it in. One is that it's just an essential part of the narrative of April 19th or April 18th. I should say. Yeah, that even facts that are not directly relevant to the elements of an offense or a defense are relevant if they're just an essential part of the story. You just can't tell the story again. And I think there's an argument, just in terms of background. I'm just trying to describe a very basic level what happened on April 19th. We have to describe what happened. The other argument would probably be impeachment. So if any of the witnesses say something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, these activists were very violent," or "These activists were like out of control," we can impeach them and say like, "Well, you know, to the extent they're under control, isn't it true? That's because they're having tear gas shot into them. If they were pepper sprayed in the eye, that's why they were screaming and running around, you know, which any normal person would do." But I don't have an answer off the top of my head, partly because it's just never come up in our cases. Because we are so non-violent, we've never had an instance like this happen. Maybe in animal rights history. Anyway, not just in the United States.
Do you anticipate that the way this played out will actually turn people away from the doctrine of nonviolence and say, hey, we got to fight fire with fire?
Yeah, I hope. I think that would be exactly what the authorities want. And I think exactly what, I mean, you can see what they want based on what they said. They're being very transparent. They want us to be dangerous and violent and aggressive because then it justifies everything we should do.
Yes.
So it is going to be very important for us to maintain not just message discipline, but also just spiritual discipline, moral discipline. So, and I say this as someone who's also looking to maintain dialogue about nonviolence. I mean, I have dear friends, Gary Roski being one of them, considered Gary a very good friend. I think he's a brilliant activist. He doesn't 100% agree with nonviolence. Even if we're going to have those dialogues in the context of some campaigns, I think the movement has to respect the folks who sacrificed so much of this campaign from the start. You know, I mean, not even like the last few months or even the last few years. I mean, going back to 2013 when we started Direct Never and said we need nonviolent backlash. It's certainly 2017. We worked so hard on this campaign and asked everyone to be a part of it. And again, we didn't ask for much in terms of agreements within the movement. One of them was nonviolence. So, you know, if folks want to do other things outside of this campaign, great. But especially when animals are in peril and people are risking their freedom, let's all kind of respect the sacrifices all of us have made and say we're going to remain nonviolent in this one, including in language. And again, people should push back on my language. There are times where I feel like, oh, that was language. Including with the deputy. I mean, I had a good conversation with Tracy Becker, the deputy who dragged one of the dogs out of the police van. I saw the Ridglan Farms, it wasn't. Which is one of the reasons I'm just like shocked they escalated, because I actually had a pretty civil conversation with them just a couple days before. It's like, okay, we can talk now and talk about how, yeah, you know, like, somebody thinks about this and we can probably work it out and talk. And then suddenly you're shooting us? This is like psychopathic behavior. I mean, obviously it's not an individual, it's a system that's psychopathic, but it's a psychopathic system. Like if a normal human being did that to you, it's like on Wednesday, like you're sitting down and having coffee, and then I said they're like shooting you and pepper spraying you in the face, and you're like, oh my God, this person's psychotic. There's something deeply disturbing about this, what this person has become. And I don't know what it is, but they need treatment. And what's true of that person is even more true of the system that has them. There's something very kind of dangerous about that Jekyll and Hyde.
They're talking about the tools that we brought as though they're guns and knives and though we were going to attack humans. And that was the furthest thing.
Yeah, you know who else has tools to rescue people and animals? Firefighters.
Right.
You know where we got advice from? Firefighters.
There we go.
Literally, it was firefighters who gave us advice on this. Yeah. If you know anything about firefighters, like Haugen tools, a firefighter tool. We just asked, are you a firefighter? Yeah, so you know about Haugen tools. Yeah, these are all firefighter tools. Why do firefighters have these tools? To rescue people.
And animals.
And they do.
Yes.
They break down doors and they're entitled to legally. Firefighters and police officers are totally entitled to smash windows and doors to help human beings and animals without a search warrant. Even. And if the government's allowed to do this, then why are we not?
Yeah.
Right? Because the government is violating our constitutional rights when it does these things without search warrants. Right? There's no violation of search of constitutional rights when a private citizen to aid an animal, to save an animal's life, breaks into a cage and takes them out. This is weird. I don't even.
Everyone take turns. Come on, take turns. I'm going to film everyone that's here. Go on. There you go.
After that, there's so much. You're taking notes, the process.
Oh, thank you. What does your sign mean?
We just give it so much.
Okay, 311 violations.
Oh, there's how many violations there are.
You know what the sign means? What does the DA?
Yeah, that's who's refusing to do a walkthrough of Ridglan
District
Farms
attorney?
an hour ago.
Let's see what yours says. Oh, yes. Beautiful. Thank you.
You haven't seen me write about this 20 years ago when I first started getting up.
So there's a young lady who's going to be riding with me in Chicago. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Excellent. Are you guys thinking of eating?
I want to stay forever and listen to Wayne, but I guess we're gonna finish. Thank you. Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection. Thank you so much.
You know what that?
See that stuff?
At least I don't think I do.
It's going to come. It's not be released.
Yeah.
I want to greet him.
That big cheer.
Well, that's that too. Here's gas pepper spray. We're okay. He was. Did you see him when he was arrested?
Yes.
He was hollering that as he was dragged off.
Wow.
He wasn't quite dragged, but he was kind of walking backwards, hollering.
Okay, I'm gonna walk out and get the overall view. Oh, just behind you can see the Madison dome where we were the other day.
That's a question. Sorry.
We've had all sorts of actions in here for the animals in this city. Let's grab the last question if we can.
As long as your action is non-violent, I think there's very, very little downside for us. That's one of the beautiful things about nonviolence. Because part of nonviolence too is even if you say something a little off color, part of nonviolence is recognizing when we harm others, we're accountable for it. So, I said some things to a deputy and about a deputy that actually, in retrospect, especially when I saw some of the responses people trying to kill, I was like, that's not what I was trying to pick up. Let's not do that.
You made it very
And I
clear.
apologize.
And you're getting close to it, and you're very clear. about it.
For sure. So, yeah, and I think as long as we do that, even if we say something that's a little just off color or doesn't get the mark, it's okay. Because our philosophy is one that allows us to repair the harm that's caused. So, but I think, going to talk to about it, I will say, I suspect Tony Evers is not going to do much about this because of the biomedical industry.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's too much money involved and it feels too close. It's not even Ridglan Farms itself. It is the massive corporate infrastructure around Ridglan Farms.
That's what I'm saying, big pharma,
He's giving us Wisconsin. It's work. It's vice.
Yep.
Yes. It's not just lips.
Yeah.
How are you? My jail buddy from last time. How are you? You feeling good?
Yeah.
It's good to see you. We just
What a joy to see Wayne out, and let's follow the next steps and see what the heck will happen in the future. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining the live stream. I'll do excerpts of it. Thank you, David. Looking forward to seeing you back in Canada. Be so good. Okay, thanks for joining. Signing off.